season, and already the pressure is mounting on the team, just as Phil Neville and Gonzalo Higuain. Hello everybody and welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, aka, as you may know it, Miami Total Football Radio, the number one and most listened to podcast on Inter Miami, touching on all things regarding the team. We provide you with all the latest news, updates, inside information, analysis, opinions, and more. I've struggled saying analysis during the last 2 weeks. Not sure why. But anyway, my name is Franco Panizo. I am 1/3 of your hosting team. Although that 1/3 is one half this week. Steve El Primo Brenner is in Barbados, I believe, and he is enjoying a cricket match, I think, with his family over the course of a few days. So he is not in the house for this week's episode, but the other co-host that is in the house is Jose Cinco Armando, also known affectionately by me as Island Jose. Jose, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday morning?
I'm doing good. Franco. Even though, we had a little bit of everything over the weekend in the Inter Miami in terms of weather, in terms of football or soccer. But I'm good. I'm doing good. It's a happy day here in my household. But I'm happy to talk soccer with you.
How is your football manager going? Because I know you've played a decent bit or a decent amount since we last recorded.
Well,
Don't tell me you haven't. Don't tell me you haven't, because I know you've played.
No, I'm still in preseason. I'm still in preseason trying to figure things
Bro,
out.
how are you still in preseason? How are you still?
Well,
How many games did you schedule? Like 30?
no, I had like 6 or 7 games. I just want to be ready. I want to be ready for the start of the regular season, and I'm still going through some of the MLS rules when it comes to the roster. Blaze is actually on the roster in the game, so I kind of have to decide whether I want to get rid of him or what do I want to do. So that's a big decision, Franco.
Just play him. Play him. Have him there. Use him off the bench.
I don't know because he takes an international roster spot. And so, I would have to leave out Mota or Gregory or doesn't make sense. So I don't want to kick Campana as well. I don't know. See, this is why it's gonna take some time. But I think I should move past preseason this week.
Okay, well, Inter Miami's season, their actual season, is not going that well. And we will touch on that in this week's episode. Obviously, dissecting the most recent game, a 2-0 defeat at home to LAFC. We will also touch on Phil Neville's comments with regards to Gonzalo Higuain and needing or wanting him to step up and produce more. And we'll touch on a bunch of other things leading up to this weekend's game against FC Cincinnati, the last one before the international break. At the very end of the podcast, we will, of course, answer your questions in our beloved Q&A session. We love doing it. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it as well. So, Jose, it's just you and I this time. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Let's get to it. So, Inter Miami's Week 3 game went like this, everybody. They came out in a 4-4-2, and they lost 2-0 at home at Drive Pink Stadium, dropping more points in their home venue. The goals came from Kwadwo Opoku in the 45th minute, and then Ismail Tajuri Shradi in the 82nd off of a free kick that nobody got he whipped it in. It was a crossed free kick, but nobody got a hand to it, or nobody got a head to it, and it just found the back of the net. So Inter Miami's undone that way. Of course, of note was Breck Shea receiving a red card just before halftime, 2 minutes into first half stoppage time. So Inter Miami loses. This was the lineup that they went with: Clement Diop in goal, DeAndre Yedlin, Damian Lowe, Christopher McVeigh, and Breck Shea was the starting back four. The midfield four from right to left were Jean Mota, Gregory, Mo Adams, and Robert Taylor. And then up top were Gonzalo Higuain and Leonardo Campana. Jose, we will dive into all the post-game remarks in just a little bit, but let's start with your biggest takeaway from this game.
Well, it's really hard to tell because there are so many little things that you can point at. But I would obviously point initially to the formation, right? Because we were able to see this formation from the start. We had an idea of what it would look like from the last game against Austin in the second half. But yeah, the formation. I think it's the takeaway here. We can see how things are starting to change now that Phil is trying to develop this four-man backline formation, staying away from the five-man backline that we have been used to for most of last year and the start of this year. I
I told
think
you Friday. I told you Friday we would see the
yeah,
four man. I told you
yeah.
during the press conferences. I was like, I think they're switching. And you, what did you tell me?
No, it wasn't expected. For me, it wasn't
It
expected.
was just the way. It was the way Phil Neville talked about the differences that were in between them. When I asked him, his response to me led me to believe that it would. I found out afterwards, closer to the game, that they were going to go with the four-man backline. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to bring up that anecdote because you told me flat out in the press conference, no way they're switching to a back four against LAFC. It's not possible. But obviously they
Yeah.
did, and they didn't do too bad. They did not do too bad, regardless of what the score was.
Yeah, because when I thought that having changing the formation against LAFC, which is a good team, um, was going to be a little bit risky. I was thinking about the good LAFC, not the one that we saw over the weekend here in South Florida. So yeah, I thought it was risky because we all know that this is a team that's still a work in progress, and so if you go away from your biggest asset, then you're compromising yourself. And I thought that was well. In my mind, that I thought that was a mistake. They changed the formation against a good team like LAFC. But in the end, I think it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. I mean, listen, the game was horrible in the first half. I know you think otherwise, but to me, it was horrible. It was terrible to watch. I don't know if it was the wind or anything, but they couldn't put three passes together. To me, it was just very disappointing first half.
So my biggest takeaway from this game is that the result masked the performance. I don't think this was a 2-0 type of game for Inter Miami that they should have lost, just based on what we saw. Inter Miami defensively did a good job, and I agree with you that LAFC did not look all that energetic. They didn't look like the LAFC that we normally come to expect. Maybe that has to do with something that Andy Diosa last week said when we previewed the LAFC game about this would have been a 10:30 a.m. game for them had they been back home in Los Angeles, right? Just because of the time difference. So maybe they were conserving energy. Maybe it was part of the game plan. Maybe Inter Miami just did a very good job defensively. Damian Lowe had a very, very good game, in my opinion. Christopher McVeigh did as well. Not as good as Damian Lowe, but I thought the center back partnership there was pretty solid. So defensively, Inter Miami did its job. Did its job. It nullified LAFC by and large in this game. Obviously, they gave up 2 goals. The first one, I think, comes off of an unfortunate bounce. Breck did not do a great job of tracking his man and marking his man, but that first goal comes off an unfortunate bounce because Robert Taylor goes to block a pass and it deflects perfectly into the path of Kwadu Opoku. And then the second goal, obviously late on, comes off of again a free kick that nobody touched, and it just found its way into the back of the net. So I don't think Inter Miami performed that badly. Not enough for a 2-0 defeat, but I do agree with you in the sense that, yes, in the first half, the passing was off the mark. The team lacked precision, they lacked accuracy, and the team also didn't generate a whole lot as a result of that. But they still were able to keep possession. And that's something we touched on last week, is that Inter Miami needed to be better with the ball in order to defend with the ball, in order to be able to nullify the opponent and avoid having to defend for large stretches and giving the LAFC chance after chance to try to create attacking sequences. So I thought Inter Miami in that first half made big improvements, and I thought that was a step in the right direction. It wasn't a masterclass in attacking soccer, absolutely not. They didn't generate a whole lot, as I said earlier. So Yes, I get your point in that sense. That first half didn't leave you with a whole lot of chances created. Neither goalkeeper had to make a ton of saves. But again, for Inter Miami, from where it was in week 2 to week 3, I thought it was a step in the right direction. Now, we have to talk about the attack because obviously things did not go well. But before we do that, Breck Shea, what'd you think of his performance? I know you're not high on Breck Shea in general, and you've told me for a good part or the better part of a year now that you don't think he's a defender and that Inter Miami probably should move on from him. So this game probably justified that opinion a bit or strengthened that opinion a little bit. But what'd you think of his game overall?
Yeah, I just don't think that's the right position for him at this time in his career. I mean, he can go by experience because he played there before, but it's been a while since he has been effective there. So I think he's playing there out of necessity because maybe Phil thinks that experience can overcome the unexperience and with that Noah Allen um, brings to the table when he's on the field. I just thought, other than Breck Shea not having a good game and getting that red card in the last few seconds of the first half, which obviously, it was a huge talking point and it should be a huge talking point because that changed the game. Um, I just think that it's not to blame on Breck Shea, but I think the responsibility of this game not going the way Phil wanted it to go, it's on the middle of the field and not necessarily on Mo Adams because he was probably the highlight of the team. Mo Adams played a very good game, trying to do more than what he needed to do, but I think Jean Mota and Gregory, they were not good enough. Watching the game over again, I just think they were not good enough. And I do agree and we'll talk about this later on with Phil. I just thought they needed to do a lot more. They missed so many easy passes, easy ones. Everyday pass in training, in game, and they missed them all. They missed a lot. So I wouldn't put blame on Breck Shea for an individual error playing out of position, according to my opinion, of course. I wouldn't put much blame on him. I just think it's all in the middle of the field.
So I would disagree with you on two aspects of that. I would disagree with you in that that's not Breck Shea's position because at this point in his career, if he's not playing left back or left wing back, I don't know where else he can play. I don't think he has the pace to be a left midfielder or winger, and he's definitely not a center back. So I think that is his position at this point in time. But I do. Oh well, I also disagree with that. It didn't come down just to one play. I thought he had probably the worst performance he's had in an Inter Miami jersey in the first half of this game against LAFC because he was missing passes left and right. He was just not sharp, and that can happen. That can happen. You can come out of or you can come out of the gates and start a game and just not have it on the day. The touch can be off. The passes you attempt don't connect. That can happen, but all of that combined with the then mistake on the deflected pass that leads to the goal, and then the red card that for me was decisive. The red card for me just doomed Inter Miami and ruined any chance they had at getting back into that game. Because at 1-0 down before halftime, obviously not great, especially to give it up just before you're about to go into the locker room. But then to get the red card and be down a man and down a goal, it's practically I won't say it's impossible because Inter Miami did have moments where it looked like they started to threaten, but it's very, very difficult. It's an uphill climb, a steep uphill climb, and it proved too tough for Inter Miami in the gusts of wind and sheets of rain that were at Drive Pink Stadium, at least temporarily with regards to the rain in that second half. So Inter Miami, they lost in the wind and they're, what are they now? 0-1-2.
You're just expecting too much out of Breck Shea. That's the problem. Because you expect for him to be good defensively, good with the ball, moving all out of the
Oh,
back.
come on,
That's
Jose. He's not.
that's
Jose.
a lot
Jose.
to ask of him.
Jose.
He's not at that level to play at that position back and forth. He's not a left back anymore. He's not
So
a
what
left
position
back
is he
anymore.
then? Where should he play?
he plays on the left somewhere in the middle of the field. Put him in the position that you want. But a left back is no longer a left back. I mean, he's gonna be in trouble. Look what happened in the red card. And that's a couple of seconds decision. You only have a couple of seconds to decide whether you want to foul or not. But if you chase him, if Breckshay chase him, he's not gonna get him. He's not gonna get him. That's gonna be a 1v1 with the goalkeeper. And he decided to take on the red card. Of course, now we know it's a bad decision. But if you put Breckshay in that position, the outcome is not going to be a good one, whether it's a yellow card or it's a goal. So, I mean, if this happens to Damian Lowe, yes, I can criticize him a lot. But this is what I come to expect from Breckshay. That's why I don't want him to play as a left back.
Those are harsh words, man. This is what you come to expect from Breck Shea, a goal given up and a red card. Look, I know people are down on Breck Shea, and some people are down on Breck Shea. Not everybody, but some people are. I would say, you can have a bad game. You can have a bad game, right? That happens. He had a bad game, a terrible game. I would need to see him. I would give if it were me, I would give him one more chance, like as a left back at some point in the season. And if he does not perform in that game, then okay, maybe it's time to start looking towards the future and looking at either Noah Allen or a different alternative there. Because you can have a bad game. You can have a bad game. So, look, and Breck Shea has provided good moments over the last 2 years. And I know, again, you're not super high on Breck Shea, but he has provided some
But those,
goals. He has had some serviceable outings for Inter Miami over the past
right.
2 years. So,
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. You talk about moments. Okay, let's go back in time. How many of those moments are on defense? And how many of those moments are whether he scores or he gets an assist?
I mean, more of the moments, of course, will come on the attacking end. Those will be the ones that you
Yeah.
remember more. Hold on, those will be the ones you remember more. But that doesn't mean that he hasn't had decent to solid games at the back. I'm not saying he's ever been a shutdown defender where he's closed down his wing completely, but he's been serviceable. And look, in MLS, with the roster you have and the budgets and all this, you need serviceable players. You don't. Not every player in every position is going to wow you. But again, just my point is that I would give him one more game. If he has another shocker like he did on Saturday, which again can happen, then I would say, okay, you know what? Maybe he's past it now at this time in his career, and maybe you use him in just very, very seldom or very, very few situations. But I wouldn't just completely say Breck Shea is not at the level right now. He had a terrible game. No denying that. But it's just one game. It's one game. If he does it again, if that's his performance level in another match, all right. Another player that did not have a good game was Gregory, who I thought also in that first half missed a lot of passes, just wasn't very sharp, did not look like the Gregory that we know, and he hasn't really looked like the Gregory we know through the first 3 games of this season. Something that Phil Neville mentioned in the post-game press conference when he said very directly, Gregory needs to get up to his level or needs to raise his level. Um, what did you think of Gregory's performance in this one in that middle of the park? I know you just mentioned it with Jean Mota, but Gregory specifically, what did you think of the captain's showing against LAFC?
Yeah, I do agree. I agree with you. I think, I was expecting so much more from Gregory. I think, we all know that he hasn't been performing at a level that we know he can. And with this being a national televised game, just having an opportunity to play against a top opposition in MLS, I thought he would step up, but for some reason, I don't know if it's not feeling comfortable. I really don't know what's going on here because Gregory should be the one man that you can rely on gaming every single game during the regular season. That's his style. That's what we learned from him in the last few months here in South Florida. So I just thought he was very ineffective. I don't know, if having Mo Adams right next to him and having Mo play at a high level, he kind of relaxes a little bit and takes notes that he has somebody that can actually help him, and as well with with the chemistry that they have with John Mata, because that has been noticeable. When they connect with each other, they know what they want to do. But unfortunately, they haven't done it enough, and especially over the weekend, I just thought, passes that were missed, that were important in the build-up, they were just not there. And we can point out at Gonzalo and the attacking players, but the middle of the field wasn't able to set things up, and I think that's mainly on Gregory, because he's the captain, and because he should be the leader in the middle of the field.
You made a good point about Mo Adams because Mo Adams is how would you describe his strengths as a player or as a midfielder, a central midfielder? He's rangy, covers a lot of ground. But
Yes, yes.
that's what Gregory does as well. But if Mo Adams is doing that, does Gregory feel as I don't know if the word's free, but if he feels as I'll just say free. If he feels as free as doing the same, does he feel a little more restricted, or he has to be a little bit more tactically savvy and stay in position? I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions, but it could be something that is playing a role in this. That maybe he doesn't feel he has that freedom to just roam around and run around, because if you have two center midfielders doing that, then your shape, your defensive posture could be left pretty exposed. So maybe there is an element to that there, but obviously, regardless of what it is, Gregory has to pick it up, because in that first half, I thought he and Breck Shea were two of the worst players for Inter Miami in terms of just what they brought to the table, because they neither of them were connecting on passes. Gregory had a couple of moments where he tried to penetrate with dribbling runs. I remember one where he got fouled and he very demonstratively asked for a foul and got very upset. Something we normally don't see from Gregory, but for me, it's probably just the frustration from having mishit so many passes and having just been lacking that sharpness that you need to start a game. So I think he was upset more with himself than with the foul, and he lashed out. But that's just my vantage point from the outside. Before we get to Phil Neville's comments on Gonzalo Higuain, we have to touch on one more player, and that is Leonardo Campana. He was pulled at halftime as part of the changes that Phil Neville made to try to adjust to losing a man and then trying to get back into the game. I thought he had a very, very poor performance as well. What did you think of Leonardo Campana's most recent start for Inter Miami?
Um, Listen, I think I'm gonna be very honest here. I don't want to blame Campana, because I'm starting to understand what type of player he is, and I think he's gonna be, one of those guys, strikers, traditional strikers, where he's usually waiting for that one chance. You maybe don't see him touch the ball for 88 minutes, but in the 89th minute, he gets an opportunity, he puts it in. I'm hoping that's the case, because as of right now, there's not a lot we can dive into. He hasn't shown a lot, but I
Yeah,
want to give him.
he has the one goal this season for Inter Miami. So
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't go by
of
stats.
course, of course. I said that
I
tongue in cheek, tongue in cheek. That was said in
Yeah.
jest.
So I want to give him some time to maybe see how he can develop some relationships on the field. I obviously like for him to start in this formation with. I think he gets a lot of help, and he's going to have more opportunities this way. Um, but other than Campana, I think we're missing a name here, and it's Robert Taylor. He got the start, and I did not like what I saw from Robert Taylor as well. He was very ineffective. He didn't get a lot of good balls, I would say that, and that's on the midfielders again. But if we're gonna talk about Campana and how he didn't show that much, I think Robert Taylor, it's on that list as well. But again, it's part of the development, and maybe when we were the point we were just touching on Mo Adams and that relationship with Gregory, maybe that's part of the development of as well of this team. I think we mentioned this several times during preseason. It's going to take some time. This is not going to be a good team from the get go. And right now, they're not a good team, and they're showing they're not a good team. We're gonna have to wait and see. That's why I still have my deadline of 10 games. After when you get to 10 games, and that's a lot. That's a lot.
It's
Ten
a third of
games.
the season, pretty much.
That's a lot of room there. So if by the 10th game this team is not showing something different, then you know it's gonna be even tougher, I think, than what we thought.
So I will not absolve Leonardo Campana of playing because he did not have a good first half showing. And yes, he's probably still working his way back to 100%, which he touched on when we spoke to him last week in terms of his sharpness, in terms of getting comfortable with the teammates and the system. But you still have to perform better than he did in that first half because he was a non-factor. Yes, Inter Miami in general did not progress the ball forward well. They kept it for stretches, but they did so more so. They did so more in the middle of the park and in the defensive zone, not really in the attacking third. So that's going to hurt how much Campana and Higuain could influence the game because they were the two strikers for Inter Miami. But when he did get the ball, the few times that it came his way, did not like what I saw. And I think Phil Neville also did not like what he saw. Because Inter Miami, if you go back and rewatch the game, and this is something I noticed in the stadium at Drive Pink on Saturday, they try to go long to Campana a few times. And it looked like they wanted him to flick the ball onto teammates or fight for those aerial battles and try to win second balls off of him. And they very rarely did that. And on two occasions, I saw two occasions in the stadium where when they went long and he lost the aerial challenge and LAFC got the ball very quickly, Phil Neville shouted in frustration. So Campana has to do better there. In that aspect, he has to do better in terms of his sharpness. Now, Phil Neville had said in the lead up to the game against LAFC that he wanted Campana to use his body, his size, his strength a little bit more. He wants him to be more of that type of forward. And I can understand the frustration because you saw him lose multiple aerial battles there in against LAFC on long balls that were played out of the back. So he needs to do better across all aspects. If he's not going to get a lot of touches in the final third, at least help in the build out, at least flick some balls on, at least do that function. Especially if you have the size. It's not like he doesn't have the size. We'll see if he can develop into that type of player because, I remember, and this is going back some time now, but Kenny Cooper, when he was playing in MLS and he was with the Red Bulls, and even before that, he was a big dude. People thought he should play a certain type of way because he has a big frame and he should be able to outmuscle center backs and hold them off, but he was never that type of player and he never really became that type of player. So Campana's much younger. We'll see how Campana develops. We'll see if he turns into that type of player that uses his body more, uses his frame more to hold off defenders and is a bit more physical. A bit more physical. That's the word I'm looking for. A bit more physical. So we'll see how.
I do agree with that. Although I say one thing. If Inter Miami creates chances, gets possession on the attacking side of the field, we're very easily going to forget about Campana not being effective on long balls, right? Because he's inside the box. And if he's able to finish, then we're not going to care that he's good or not with his body. We're going to care about him scoring. And if he misses opportunities, then we're going to point them out.
Now I think you're asking for too much. Now I think you're asking for too much because I don't think this Inter Miami team is going to be that type of team where they are going to generate good attacking sequences by and large through possession. They don't have the players for that. Who are the technical players in the team that can create?
What I'm trying to say is that, it's hard to judge Campana because of long balls, because that's probably not his game. We have to judge him by the chances that he gets inside the box because that's where he gets his money. So if he's not, even if he's winning long balls, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a good thing for Inter Miami. I mean, that might be the first step that Phil wants to take to play a little bit more, to get a little bit faster and onto the other side of the field. But that doesn't necessarily means goals. So I think Campana is there to score goals, not to win long balls.
Jose, of course a striker needs to put the ball in the back of the net, but there are other elements to the game that they have to incorporate as well. It's not just, okay, put the ball in the back of the net and do nothing else. There's different things they have to do in the sequences that lead up to potential chances. And winning, if Phil Neville wants to go long and he thinks Campana has the size to do so, which I think you just said you agree with, that he does have the size and he should be able to, then I think it's perfectly reasonable to say he should be doing better in that regard. Because again, I don't think this Inter Miami team is going to be a team that is going to be setting up Leonardo Campana with passes left and right by and large so that he can put them into the back of the net. They're going to have to come on either Higuain's magic or just different moments,
Yeah,
set pieces, half chances, different things. I don't think he's going to just get fed, clear-cut scoring chances left and right on this Inter Miami team because I just don't see them having that many technical players that can advance the ball in that way. Jean Mota is one, Higuain's another, Robert Taylor has shown signs, but that's about it. Gregory's not that type of player, Mo Adams isn't that type of player. Like, I just don't see this team, giving Campana a boatload of chances for him to put away. And he did have some chances in that first game of the season, and he did not score. And yeah. he needed to do better there. Let's switch gears because we've talked a good bit about Campana. Let's go to Higuain. Let's go to Phil Neville because Phil Neville made some remarks after the match that grabbed plenty of headlines and grabbed a lot of attention. Let's listen to his remarks. One was very directly about Higuain. The other one you could read between the lines and interpret it as so. But let's give them a listen and then we'll dive into it.
Because I want him to score goals and I want him to assist goals. So his role's no different than last year. He had lots of assists last year and lots of goals. Just because he's changed the number on his back doesn't mean that my expectations of him are any more or any less. Just because there's a number 10 on the back doesn't take off. Oh, he doesn't have to score goals now because he's not got the number 9 on the back. I want him to score more goals. For us to be successful, he has to perform. For us to be successful, he has to perform in these moments for this team. That's the challenge. So for me, and I'm really strong on this, is that his role hasn't changed. He dropped in last year, played in the hole last year. Very rarely did he run in behind last year. Just because the number on his shirt's changed doesn't mean that people's opinions of where he's playing and the expectations of me, he is the one that's our best finisher. He's the one that we demand the most goals from. He's the one that we demand the most assists from, period. But I just wanted more quality from my quality players because that's what they give. That's what every team we've played against, their quality players stand up and score. Ours don't, and they need to. And that's the pressure. We had chances in the first game against Chicago, 4 or 5 chances. I think in the second game against Austin, I think they had 7 chances. I think we had 13 shots on goal. 13 shots on goal. They had 7, scored 5. So there lies the problem. They had 7 shots on goal and scored 5. We had 12 and scored 1. So there's accountability there. There's accountability there for the team. We controlled the game. In the final third, you want your best players to stand up, to show the most composure. I'm like a broken record, show the most composure and the most quality from set plays. Deliver the ball into the right areas that we work on. Final pass, final movement, final shot. Deliver. And it's why I was a fullback and was paid the less in the team. Defenders get paid the less for a reason, and attackers get paid the most for a reason. It's because that's the hardest thing to do.
Jose, you were there in the press conference room as I was on Saturday. We've had a few days now to digest it, think about it. What are your thoughts? I haven't gotten your updated thoughts. I don't know if they're the same as they were on Saturday night when we spoke in person or if they've changed. But what are your thoughts on those comments from Phil Neville?
No, after watching the game again, I do agree with Phil. Pipita, he needs to do a little bit more. He needs to do. He's capable of doing more. I think the right decision was made in the second half, bringing him out and getting some pace with Lassiter. I know exactly what Phil was what his message was, and I don't think it's about creating a talking point or trouble within the locker room. It's just a matter of the frustration that when you have a top player like him, I don't know if it's a top player, but you know what I mean. He
In
is playing
MLS,
at
sure.
the highest level. So you have to expect a little bit more from him, and he needs to be that leader that goes and talks directly to Gregory and Mota and just gets in their ear and tells them, hey, listen, it's a simple pass. You need to do that for me. I need you to do that. And if not, he needs to get on the ball. And he needs to understand how to make adjustments on the field and not just wait for his teammates to do something for him so that he's positioned where he wants to be and do things how he wants to do them. At times, I think he needs to learn how to adjust to what's going on the field. And he needs to understand as well, Franco, this is not a top team. This is not one of the best teams in MLS. So there are going to be challenges. There are going to be moments in which you are frustrated with how your teammates with what your teammates are doing. They can develop into a good team, but as of right now, they are still a work in progress. And if I know that, Gonzalo Higuain should know that better than me. So I do agree with Phil on his comments, and hopefully, this doesn't get out of proportion because I think it doesn't have to. It's just a frustration from a manager, and I do agree with Phil this time.
I agree with Phil Neville in the sense that Higuain does have to raise the level of his performances. The last two games have not been great from him. The first game in week one was pretty acceptable. The last two games, not so much. But Inter Miami, again, like we've said, in terms of the attack, hasn't been all that great. A lot of that lies on his shoulders as the DP, but part of that also lies on the function of the team, how well the team is playing, how just the team in general is moving the ball forward. So I agree with Phil Neville to an extent. But I don't agree with Phil Neville in that Gonzalo Higuain's role has not changed.
Oh,
Because his role has absolutely changed. I don't know how Phil Neville can sit there and say that the Higuain's role has not changed, because maybe the expectations from within have not changed in terms of Gonzalo Higuain needs to create and score. Okay, I understand that, but his role on the field tactically has definitely changed. He is no longer the guy leading the front line. And yes, last year he dropped back at times and necessarily wasn't the spear of the attack. But he's definitely dropping back now and has a striker ahead of him, which he didn't have for much of last year. Maybe towards the tail end of the season when Robbie Robinson was starting to get looks again as a striker. Okay, maybe there Higuain was playing more of a 10. But this season, he's clearly playing a bit more withdrawn than whoever his strike partner is, whether it's Campana, whether it's Lassiter. So I don't agree with Phil Neville there. I think you don't either.
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, I think that's a given. Maybe I really don't know what Phil was thinking, but maybe it was just a frustration. But I think you know
I think it's a good question for this week.
it, it's pretty clear, Franco. I mean, roles have changed. I mean, do you want Pipita to score? Yeah, absolutely, of course. That's what he has been doing throughout his entire career. Of course, you want him to score. But if you want him to score, you put him inside the box. You get him a 10 that he can actually believe in, like he did last year with his brother, and then he's going to be inside the box. But he has shown so many times this year and last year that if he's not comfortable with the player that is playing right behind him, then he's going to drop back a little bit and he wants to get some touches, and that's exactly what he has been doing. And no, he's not. It's not the same role. It's not the same role, and I think everybody listening can agree to that. I really don't know. Maybe Phil was trying to get to the point that they want him to do so much more, right?
That part I understand. I
Yeah,
understand. But tactically, his role has absolutely changed. Tactically,
yeah, it's changed. Yes,
and
absolutely.
and now I wanted to touch on something from this game that you mentioned to me in person on Saturday that I did not see, but I saw it on the broadcast. And that is that when Gonzalo Higuain was subbed off in the second half, Phil Neville gives him a pat on the arm, And then Jason Christ comes over to Higuain as Higuain's walking to the bench to shake his hand, or just give him the formal gesture of, all right, good effort, or however you want to look at it. And what did Higuain do? Waved him off. Like he was frustrated with the performance, with himself. I don't know, but he did not give Jason Christ a handshake. And obviously that can happen in a game. The emotions are high, and tension is high as well. So, but that obviously doesn't look very good, especially from Higuain, who's been criticized for his attitude and his demeanor. So, your thoughts on that? Because we had a lengthy discussion about this after the game, about Higuain and his role in that locker room and within the team, not necessarily on the field, but within the team.
Yeah, I think that's salir de aquí moment in Spanish, right?
Mm.
Salir de aquí. I don't know if it translates well to get out of here.
Get out of here. Get out of here,
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. The reputation that Peter Higuain's reputation right now is that's the main talking point. Honestly, the relationship, the way he expresses himself on the field, that's a talking point, and obviously that's not going to help. But I think it comes down to the fact that he just didn't want to come out of the game, which is something that you're going to probably see every game if you sub him out. So that part, I think it's good because, it shows compromise, that he wants to be on the field, that he wants to help this team. But it also makes you think, like, why would he do that? Why is he not aware of what this can do to the team and to the outside talk, which shouldn't get in, but I mean, it obviously gets in. The players listen to what everybody else is saying about what how the way he reacts on the field. So it's and listen, Jason, to me, I mean, he I give him a lot of credit for trying, because I would have stayed away from Higuain. If you really know him, I would have stayed away from Higuain as he was coming out of the field.
Jason Christ's response, from what I can gather on the TV, is just like, okay, as Higuain just walks past him and snubs his handshake gesture, his handshake attempt. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I will ask you because we have had this conversation in person, and I think we should have it as well on air. Who runs this team, in your opinion? Is it Phil Neville or is it Gonzalo Higuain?
I think this year Phil is in control, but
I disagree.
I don't think Phil is in complete control of Gonzalo Higuain. So Phil controls most of the team except for the VP, because I think we both have heard Phil Neville say that he wants Gonzalo Higuain to play as a 9. We have heard that several times, haven't we?
Yeah, he told me in preseason when I sat down with him that it's a mental thing for Higuain in terms of wanting to play as a 10 and not needing to trust his teammates and the players he has around him in this squad this year, and that he thinks he's the best finisher. Now, obviously, since then he said he's the best finisher and best assist man as well, or the best playmaker. But look, for me, I think it's clear that Higuain runs this team to an extent. Because, like you just mentioned, if Phil Neville's preference is to have Higuain up top in the box as a number 9, then you make him do that. Then you tell him this is what your role is. And if the player's not following those instructions, then you got to have a talk with him, or you bench him, something of the sort.
I'm not going to bench Higuain.
But that's my point. So then, if Higuain's playing more as a 10, that's Phil Neville catering to Higuain's desires and wants. And then that, to me, tells me that Higuain's influence is pretty significant if he gets to call the shots on the position he's playing. Now, Higuain, when I sat down with him in preseason and had a one-on-one, he said he had never played that position before, really. He's never really played as a 10 throughout his career, but that, it's something he had discussed with the coach, with Phil Neville. So, look, this is not uncommon in sports where a player of a certain stature, a certain level, gets I don't know if accused, but is talked about as having a big influence, and you could look at LeBron James in basketball, right? How many different teams has LeBron James been on where people say, oh, he's the one coaching the team, not Tyrone Lue, for example? Because when you have a player of a certain level, you need a coach of a certain level, of a certain resume, of a certain personality and character to keep that player in line. And for that player to earn the respect, or excuse me, for that coach to earn the respect of the player. I don't know if Phil Neville has completely won over Gonzalo Higuain. I would say probably not, and that's just my opinion. This is not information, it's just my opinion. I don't think that Phil Neville has completely won over Gonzalo Higuain. Gonzalo Higuain's played at high levels. Phil Neville did too. But I don't know if, in terms of as a coach, if he's done enough for Gonzalo Higuain to be like, all right, yeah, I will 100% listen to this head coach, or I fully buy into the ideas that he's selling. That's just my opinion. I don't know what your opinion is on the matter.
Yeah, well, I think that the main problem for Phil right now is how to convince Higuain. I think that's a problem. That's a problem. But other than that, I think Phil is in control of the rest of the squad. Um, and maybe that will be a turning point, for this team when whether well, I think it should be Pepita, but because she should give in to and do exactly what Phil wants him to do on the field. I think that's what should happen. And if that doesn't happen, then Inter Miami needs to find a way to get him out of the team because
I think it's too late for that. I think it's too late for that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in terms of making progress, if that relationship is not able to and I'm talking about a relationship when it comes to football decisions, of course. Um, I do believe at this point, if they are able to get together and show it actually on the field, because again, we have had comments from both sides that are completely opposite in terms of the way they want to play on the field. If they're able to put their head together and find a way to both of them be comfortable and can relate that to the rest of the squad, I think better things will come for Inter Miami. But clearly at this point, they still have they are a work in progress as well. I think when Pipita realizes that it's better for him to play as a 9 like Phil wants him to play, I think that would be a better outcome for Inter Miami. Again, that's just an opinion from what I see from the press box. I'm not there every single day in training, but it seems pretty obvious from the press box. And so, I would say, I think Phil is almost in control of the entire squad except for that one big piece, which is Higuain. So hopefully we get all this sorted out, because I think it's complicated to even to cover the team, because I've had that same question in my head as well, just like the one we're talking about right now. Who's really in control?
Yeah, let's keep it real. Let's keep it honest. I mean, these are things that people close to the team that cover the team, and I'm sure some fans as well talk about, and we've talked about this throughout different points of this year, last year, not just amongst ourselves, amongst other people, other colleagues that have similar impressions. That Gonzalo Higuain is the one, and again, maybe this year that's not the same exact case because the team has changed, but Gonzalo Higuain has a very significant, obviously, influence in the decisions that are being made. And is Phil Neville doing the best job at controlling that, or not controlling, managing that personality, managing that big personality on the field and off the field? Or is he letting Higuain get away with too much? Again, these are questions that we have, and obviously it's hard to get an answer to because we are not in the locker room. Yeah. But just judging from what we see, it does look like Higuain is the one that has more influence on Neville than Neville has on Higuain. And that's just my opinion from the outside. That's my
Yeah.
opinion from the outside. And look, is that an issue? Yes, because the coach should be ideally the one that is in control or manages everything, right? Like that he's the one that makes the final decisions. But this can happen when you have a head coach who is young and whose coaching resume is as thin as Phil Neville's is, because Phil Neville hasn't coached all that much. He's still a young head coach, and it's not a criticism of him that he's a young head coach. You obviously have to go through different jobs, different roles, different different seasons in order to get yourself established and to get that experience. But he doesn't have that. And again, to reiterate, I think if they had a more established head coach with I don't know if a bigger name or a stronger name, I just think Gonzalo Higuain maybe would be a bit more bought into the whole thing. A bit more. I don't think he's fully bought in ever into Phil Neville's idea. Your comparison to last year when he had Federico on the field, I think is a prime example. When Federico Higuain was on the field, you saw a different Gonzalo Higuain. And when he wasn't on the field, then you saw a different Gonzalo Higuain. So I don't think he's ever fully bought into Phil Neville's idea. You know, if there was a Marcelo Bielsa at the helm, if El Pelado Almeida, who's in San Jose, if someone like that was coaching Inter Miami, I think Higuain would be more bought in. But again, that's just my opinion.
Now, this should get solved. I mean, this shouldn't become the Gonzalo Higuain versus Phil Neville battle. I mean, this is something that should get solved. You know, somebody needs to step in and or they need to have a talk, or you know, this I think they both have the same goal, which is for Inter Miami to win, right? And if this is the case again, you know, they need to get things sorted out, and I think that would be better for both of them. You know, obviously, Gonzalo has said before that he wants to stay here. This is his last year in the contract, so if he wants to stay here in South Florida, then he needs to perform at a high level, and he needs to know how to develop a relationship with the head coach, because it looks like Phil is going to be here as well for the long run, as of right now, of course. And so, I mean, they both want to win. And I think at some point, if Phil has had the courtesy to give Gonzalo Higuain the right to make the decision where he wants to play, if this is not working, I think we need to see a similar response from Gonzalo, right? You know, if the team is not scoring, is not winning games, then maybe try what the coach wants to do. You know, that's
But it's
not.
not. But it's up to the coach to make the game plan. It's up to the coach. Ideally, it's up to the coach to say, "Hey, you're playing as a 9, and we need you to stay up there as a 9." And the player should follow that. If the player respects and is bought into the game plan, then he follows that game plan. And then if he's not, then again, that's where the questions come.
I agree.
Is Higuain fully bought into this? And I'll add this final thought because we've gone long on this first segment. I was listening to a Peruvian podcast talk show in Spanish over the weekend, and they were talking about the World Cup qualifying roster that was called up by Ricardo Gareca, Peru's head coach, for these last pair of World Cup qualifiers in South America. And one of the talking points that they had in there was how Gareca, in his 7 years in charge, has made this team buy into his tactics, his ideas, his football ideas, and they've achieved really good things with a team that on paper is probably not all that great. That's what I think Phil Neville has to figure out with Higuain and just in general. And maybe with this group, with this new 2022 group, he's going to be able to do it a bit more because it's a younger group. But he needs to convince as many players in that locker room and as many significant pieces in that locker room to buy into his ideas and what he's selling and what he's preaching and what he has them working on every day. And if Higuain is not part of the equation in terms of buying in, then they're going to have a problem for much of the year.
He's the only one not buying in, honestly. He's the only one not buying in. I mean, I haven't heard from any other player, influential player from this team that is not happy with Phil. I mean, I think he's, listen, again, I think he's in control of most of the team, except for the one key player that Gonzalo Higuain is. And of course, that's a problem. Of course, that's a problem. But other than that, I mean, and listen, at times we've seen players play out of position, and
But
still, I think like Robert Taylor, there are several players within this roster that were brought in by Phil, and that's usually a good start, right? Because Robert Taylor is a player that seemed very thankful to be here for the opportunity that he was given. Jean Mota as well, Gregory from the get go. I think they had a good relationship. I think Gregory was able to perform at a good level, at a high level, and that's credit to the coaching staff as well. So I think there's a good relationship there. The main problem, and it shows because of the position he's playing in, is Gonzalo Higuain. That is the problem. That is where there are some issues that that need to get solved. And again,
I,
yeah, go ahead.
Jose, I thought this last game was a step in the right direction in terms of the team not giving up and continuing to play and trying to find a way into the game. The attitude that they put forth, even with 10 men and down a goal, that was good. That was a step in the right direction. But the week prior against Austin, when the team started just making mistake after mistake and head started to sink and et cetera, as we've already discussed, that to me is one where is the team fully bought into what Phil Neville's selling? Is like let's just say, and we'll quickly do this because again we've gone long on this first segment. Do you think Phil Neville's methods are? I mean, and this is we can't answer this question, but are Phil Neville's methods or his day-to-day trainings and his management style, is that working? Is that connecting and getting through to the players? We'll see. We'll see over the course of this year. Because look, you can look at players from last year. Lewis Morgan, he was playing as a right wing back. That's not his position.
Right.
Do you think he was fully bought in last year into the ideas he was selling? I mean, he's a team player. He'll do it. He'll stand there and he won't bicker and moan. But I had heard from people around the team that Lewis Morgan was not happy. Playing.
Not happy.
Of course. So again, if you're doing things like that, are you really, really getting the most out of these players? Are you really getting them to buy into your idea? That's where Phil Neville this year will have to prove his worth or show that he's made progress. And maybe this game against LAFC, especially the second half, shows that he's making progress. Because I've said this since last year. And again, it's not fair to say it with this team because it's still early in the year. But I have not seen under Phil Neville a team that plays for its coach. Up until the second half against LAFC. A team that is fighting out there and is buying into the ideas and is, you've never seen yet, really, I don't recall, one goal from an Inter Miami player, and they haven't scored a lot, obviously, over the last year and change, and then a player runs over to Phil Neville to embrace him. You haven't seen that. You don't see that come out of a player naturally. So I think we will see this season if Phil Neville's message is getting across to the players, if it's something that they are all buying into. It should, based on everything we've heard in preseason and how he had a big say in choosing these players. His message should get across. They should be buying more into the game plan, whether Gonzalo Higuain does so or not. Most of them should be buying in. But that's the challenge, and we will see how that unfolds in 2022. Jose, I'll let you add one more thing. I think you have one more thing to add, and then we'll close out this segment.
No, I just think the team is still a work in progress, and Phil is close to get where he wants to be. But I do agree that having Higuain not buying into the strategy, that could be a problem, and that will be a problem as long as he remains on the team. I I think the second half against LAFC, when the young players were in, it was exciting to watch. They had chances. Of course, they didn't have a goal scorer, which is why Wayne should be on the field and he should be taking on that responsibility. But that disconnect right there, it's a problem as of right now. But I just don't see that big of a problem with the rest of the squad and the relationship with the head coach. I just don't see it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but as of right now, I don't see it.
Again, it's early. I'm not saying it's there. I'm just saying we will see this season if Phil Neville gets these players to buy in. Because, again, he moves a lot of pieces around. Breck Shea at center back, Gene Mota this past weekend as the right midfielder. He moves players around and not necessarily puts them in their preferred positions or their strongest positions. Can he get them to buy into moves like that? That's the question. We will see. Let's leave it there. We've gone long on this first segment. We still have the second one where we will preview the game against FC Cincinnati and the Q&A session. We will do all that after this.
And but my feeling is totally different to last week in terms of what I saw and the efforts of the players and how they played as a team. Breck is obviously very upset in the dressing room. He's apologised to the team. That's the man he is. But I saw things today that gives me great confidence.
Okay, guys, it's that time of week again where we preview Inter Miami's next game with a media member that covers the opposing team. I won't say of the opposing team, but that covers the opposing team. Joining us this week is Boston Brazel. He writes for and podcasts for CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Boston, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. And I think it's my first time being on this show, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome to Miami Total Football Radio, as we say in Spanish. It's known as Miami Total Football Radio in English, but we like to roll our R's down here in South Florida. So yeah,
I don't have to repeat it. Yeah.
Maybe later. Maybe that's actually a good idea. Maybe we should have our guests try to pronounce Miami Total Football Radio like that. It might be funny.
There you go.
It might be funny. Okay, Boston. Let's just jump right into it. From an FC Cincinnati standpoint, they're playing at home on Saturday at 1 o'clock at TQL Stadium. Coming off a big win against Orlando City. What can we expect from FC Cincinnati against Inter Miami on Saturday afternoon?
Oh, man, I've been asking myself what to expect from FC Cincinnati. After 3 tough years, the fan base has a little hope for the first time in a while. That hasn't been immediately crushed. And so we saw a terrible result against Austin. I myself flew to Texas and watched the team just get abysmally crushed 5-0. Then came back home, which FC Cincinnati traditionally does not do well at home. Mm-hmm. But they lost, but in a much more comforting manner. You saw improvement. You saw pick-me-up. So going into Orlando, fans were cautiously optimistic. The thing about Orlando is they don't lose at home. They've only lost 3 since 2020. They draw a lot, but they don't lose.
Right.
So that was a really big win there. I think honestly, FC Cincinnati's in a rebuilding stage. They're in a confidence stage. They need confidence. The players need to feel like they can win after 3 years. So it kind of, I think, did some good.
So the confidence will help them, do you think, come out flying? Do you think they'll be a little more cautious? I mean, Inter Miami's also not off to a great start here in 2022. They also got routed by Austin over there in Texas. So Inter Miami's also trying to find its footing, trying to find its way. I will mention, since we are previewing the game, that Inter Miami might have a few players back and available. Robbie Robinson was in training this week, as was Bryce Duke, and I'm blanking on the third player. Oh, Kieran Gibbs. Kieran Gibbs is also back in full training this week. Not sure what exactly their statuses are for the weekend, but it looks like there's a chance that they could at least dress. Although Gibbs kind of put a dark cloud or a question mark over that. But anyway, from FC Cincinnati's standpoint, what kind of game do you think we'll see from them?
I think you'll see them try to get a little bit more aggressive in this one. They got out in front of Orlando. However, Orlando really controlled the pace of that game, as expected, because Major League Soccer is one of the biggest. Traditionally, the home team normally plays aggressive. The away team normally just goes for that point. And so I don't know how FC Cincinnati and Miami are going to face it, because both of these teams have had a rough start to Major League Soccer, really. And so both of them are looking for confidence. Both of them are looking to make their dent, but we both have these pieces that we're trying to make work. So in a way, both teams are similar, except I think Cincinnati's had a rougher go of it. We get Brenner back, we believe, and Matarrita should be back in the left wing, which is really a weak spot. If they were going to drop any points against Orlando, it was going to come from Matarrita's position. So it's really good that he's back defensively. I think you will get a more competent FC Cincinnati. Now, is that good or bad for you? I'm not sure.
Well, so I think Cincinnati's going to try to come out a little bit more aggressive. I don't think that they'll just automatically concede possession in Inter Miami, especially at home, coming off this win. Inter Miami's not in a good way. I don't think that they're going to let Inter Miami dictate the tempo. So I think Cincinnati will try to come out and try to play and keep the ball and have possession. Now, we'll see how it all plays out on Saturday, depending on who starts. You touched on Brenner and Matarrita. Who are some of the players that Inter Miami fans should be aware of? Who are some of the danger men for FC Cincinnati, or some of the key men for FC Cincinnati in this one?
So Vasquez has been the guy up top. He started to perform a little bit better at the end of last year, and then this year he's picked right back up. And I think that's what Cincinnati fans were hoping they would get out of him earlier, but it's now started to grow some fruit. The question is, will he start with Brenner and let Vasquez still be that guy way up top, and Brenner be the second forward that's kicking them in or shooting from a little bit deeper out? And then, or will they stick with the Vasquez-Baji combo that you saw in Orlando? And Baji did really well getting assists into Vasquez, and then Brenner be the punch in off the bench around the 60-65 minute mark. So I think you have options there on offense. FC Cincinnati has a lot more offensive options than they do defensive options. Right. So that's what I would watch out for, that combo, what they go with. And it doesn't matter which one they go with, because you're going to see the other one in the second half.
Right.
So just be prepared to see kind of both of those elements, I think. And then defensively, the key is going to be Matarrita and Alvis Powell. On the wings. That's the weak spot. Jeff Cameron does a decent job there in the center, but will Miami expose the wings, be able to cut in, get those balls in? Orlando had a good chance. They had many chances to either draw or beat FC Cincinnati, and the keeper, Alec Khan, did a really good job.
And that's former Inter Miami defender Alvis Powell that you're talking about there, who some Inter Miami fans will remember from the expansion season. Didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but if I'm not mistaken, he did start in the first ever game of the club's existence. Now, before I ask you for the key to the game from an FC Cincinnati standpoint, obviously there's a new head coach in town in Pat Noonan. It's very early, small sample size, can't really, do a whole expose on what he's brought, but from these first 3 games, what have you seen from Pat Noonan, just in general in terms of his coaching style, his man management? What have you seen from him at FC Cincinnati in 2022 so far?
2 immediate impacts that he's made that we've never done. He is focusing on the entire system. So he's already putting his Philadelphia Union fingerprints on the club. You'll notice a transition. He's already playing some youth. He's evaluating. He's looking ahead more than just 1 year, which is neat. Or just trying to emergency fill in gaps like we have been. So we kind of see a more long-term goal here, as long as his style of play. He's not afraid to change things mid-game. He did it versus Orlando. He immediately switched out once he figured out that the left back position was being exposed. He flipped out of it and added more help back there at halftime. So I think that's new for us. Our previous coach, you played what he started the game with. so that's the 2 big immediate impacts.
Okay. Then the final question for you is, what is the key to the game for FC Cincinnati to come away with, I imagine, 3 points that they're looking for at home, especially try to build off of this big win against Orlando?
FC Cincinnati needs to gain points in this window. They play Miami, they play Montreal, and they play I can't remember whoever else is for. It basically goes 14, 13, 12. So they play the 3 teams that are currently at the bottom, and the only reason FC Cincinnati is not at the bottom is because of that win. Charlotte, that's right. So they go 1, 2, 3 right there. So if the team wants to make any type of move out of the wooden spoon race, this is the 3-game combo they need to strike. So if I'm Pat Noonan, I'm rallying the guys saying, hey, if you don't want to spend the beginning of the season at the bottom, this is your chance, because you beating Miami, Charlotte, and Montreal because Montreal's in CONCACAF, so they're not 100% in the game yet, right?
Right.
And if you knock out those 3 teams, you have now put a decent amount of separation between you and the 3, 4, 5 guys at the bottom. And so if they don't, then we're just going to trade positions with you right at that point in the table. So going into your actual question, the key of the match, I think the key of the match for FC Cincinnati is going to be to do something to start a new tradition that they have not been good at, and that is making an impact at home. They have got to turn TQL into a fortress. Use all that fan energy. See, the thing is, Cincinnati's lost for 3 years, but the fans have stuck with them, and you'll still see a pretty full crowd on Saturday, even at 1 o'clock. So use the energy, use the stadium, make 2022 a big piece of the season where you turn that place into a fortress. And I think you're going to need to see the defense. That's my key to the match. If the defense can hold off Miami, because Miami may not have a great record, but you guys have went out and spent some money on up there at the top. So I think that's where.
So you think the defending will be the key?
It's going to be that back line. Those. It's probably going to be four. We'll probably keep 4 players back there and hold Holden, Miami off while also keeping possession and keeping something going forward. But we cannot let you guys get in behind, because we turn the ball over, and if we have too many people forward, that's going to kill us.
Okay, well, that's an interesting perspective there from Boston, and we appreciate your time. Where can people find your work? Where can people listen to you if they are interested in getting some more FC Cincinnati coverage?
Shoot. CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com is our best. That's the website. That's where we put out articles all week long. We have 3 podcasts as well that currently air. Our main show, which you can find on Cincinnati Soccer Talk, really on any podcasting app you can find. And then we have a side show called Talking Tactics with Coach Goff, and that's for like the soccer nerds. If you care what formation FC Cincinnati was in and why they made this change or why this player played this way, that's where you go. Our main show is more for the average fan.
It's a shame that neither of my co-hosts are here for this, because they're both nerding out on Football Manager extremely. So they're all up in the tactical talk, which I really enjoy myself, but I just haven't dived into to Football Manager. But anyway, Boston, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We will see how the game plays out on Saturday. I'm kind of curious if you'll give us a Miami Total Football radio attempt. I don't know. Are you brave? Are you feeling courageous?
Say it one more time.
So, Miami Total Football Radio is how it's in English, but if you want to say it in Spanish, it would be Miami Total Football Radio. But I just want you to roll your R. If you can just say radio, let's see how it goes. You might start the tradition.
Radio.
Not bad. There was an R that was rolled. All right, we like it.
I can roll it. I don't know how to roll and hold.
It's all right. It's practice. But hey, I enjoy it. That is Boston Brazo, and we thank him again so much for his time. We're going to take a quick break. We'll get to the Q&A session. We'll do that after this. Okay, guys, it's Q&A time. We will dive into it right away. Let's start with Fighting Herons, and his question will touch on the topic that we spent a lot of time on in that first segment, but I think it's worth touching on and noting again. He says, Higuain is 4th in MLS with 10 key passes. Got the assist on the lone goal and should have at least 2 more assists from the first game. But Phil and the fan base have turned against him. How would you rate Higuain's play so far this year? I have a feeling this is going to be a longer answer. Jose.
Well, those are great numbers, great stats for Higuain FC. Higuain Football Club should be very happy about that. But unfortunately, he's playing for Inter Miami CF, and he's the DP. And we're going to judge him not only because of his personal stats, individual stats, but we're gonna judge him on how the team as a whole is doing. So yeah, no, he needs to do better.
I would say it's been decent. Decent start for these first 2 games. The last 2 games haven't been good, but the team hasn't been good in terms of creating attacking sequences. And that's not just on him. He shoulders a lot of the responsibility, but it's not just on him. And in the first game, when the team was able to better string together passes, he was in the thick of it, creating, and like Fighting Herons mentions, probably could have had a few more assists in addition to the one that he got in week 2 against Austin FC. And then we're not, then his numbers look a little bit better, and Inter Miami looks a little bit better. But it's not Higuain's fault, to be fair, that Gregory can't connect a pass against LAFC. It's not his fault that Brett Shea can't connect a pass against LAFC and then gets red carded and makes a mistake at the back. Those are not Gonzalo Higuain's fault. So I would say it's been decent with lots of room for growth. Next question comes from Lucho Lalo 1896, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting before the season opener back in week 1. It was good to see you, man. Good to finally put a face to the name, because your profile picture on Twitter is Will Smith in an Inter Miami jersey. But he says, guys, Marcelo Bielsa is on the market. Can we get rid of Neville already? Can Higuain retire in the summer and bring Messi in already? Man, this has been a rough start to Inter Miami life. They are giving me Miami Dolphin vibes already. Can't wait until US Open Cup though. There's a second tweet. Will Jose be rocking his Miami FC jersey that match and be on the other side? LOL. Jose, defend yourself.
No, I will not be wearing any team's uniform. Not Miami FC, not Inter Miami, not Miami United. If you see me going to the movies, then maybe, yeah, probably there. I'll be wearing some jerseys, but no, not at all.
I just pictured you with like a bucket of popcorn and a big like Coca-Cola and your Miami FC jersey as you're going to go watch the Batman or something.
I did, but I did this week. But nevertheless, don't ask me about it because I just went because of my home obligations with my wife. But yeah, back to Inter Miami. What was the question again? I think I forgot the question.
He said, "Are you going to be wearing your Miami FC jersey to the match?" But before that, he was saying, Marcelo Bielsa's on the market. Can they get rid of Neville and as well as Higuain? Can he retire in the summer so they can bring Messi?
I don't think there's a chance right now that Marcelo Bielsa comes to Inter Miami. Well, it's you have the freedom to dream about it, but no.
Do you work for the team now? Like, what? You're just dropping in random slogans from the team here? What's going on, Jose? Well, look,
I don't see it.
Look, I will say, I'm a big Marcelo Bielsa guy. I like what he's done with a lot of the teams he's taken over. Obviously, things tend to flame out eventually. Maybe because of the level of exigencia, as we say in Spanish, the level, the demand level that he puts on the team and the players, and over prolonged periods that can be that can wear you down. So it tends not to go well for him in the end in a lot of places, but he does help revamp things in a major way. Obviously, I don't think they're getting rid of Phil Neville. I think Phil Neville's here for the foreseeable future. But I mean, Marcelo Bielsa, if Inter Miami were able to make that happen, I think that would be an incredible hire from a soccer standpoint, football standpoint, as well as from like a media standpoint. How much attention, how many eyes would be on Inter Miami if they got a coach like Marcelo Bielsa. It would definitely make the team even more newsworthy than it is. We were going to stick with the Jose defending himself topic because Don Cafecito asks, for Miami FC superfan Jose Armando 21, how many more seasons do you see this team playing? Do you believe the club is sustainable? And by the club, he means Miami FC, of course.
Oh my! We're getting a Miami FC question. See, I like that. The one reason why I mentioned Miami FC here is just to get out there, to get them some support, not necessarily because I'm a big fan, but now that we get the question, I think I mean we're having success here. I like it. Well, I think they're going to be here for the long run now that they are in USL Championship, a very well established league. I think, that they will be here. They have a very good owner in Ricardo Silva. So I think they will be making some noise very soon. So, yeah, I think that's a team for the long run. And I think that's a good thing for the entire South Florida landscape. It's good to have a good ownership, a good team, solid team that's here to stay. And if they were able to survive through NASL, NPSL, NISA, and let me see, is there one
The
more league?
pandemic. They survived through the
Pandemic.
pandemic.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I think they're here for the long run. So good news. I hope Don Cafecito is happy with that. And please don't call me a Miami FC fan anymore. Thank you.
No, call him that more. It's great. It's great. You guys had me rolling on Twitter when I saw the question. Look, I will add this because it might seem kind of obvious or like duh for some people that hear this, but maybe a lot of you haven't even put thought into it. But this is information. Miami FC as an organization is really, really, really hoping they get the opportunity to play Inter Miami in the U.S. Open Cup, because that would obviously be a great game for them. A lot of eyeballs would be on them. It'd be a huge, significant matchup in terms of a football aspect for the market. So they obviously have to take care of business first in their opening game to get to playing Inter Miami. But they definitely want that to happen. They are very eager for it to happen for a lot of reasons, both sporting and obviously as well as the publicity that they would get from playing Inter Miami. So we'll see how the Open Cup plays out. I know Jose is a big advocate of the U.S. Open Cup. All right, two more. This one we can't even answer, but I will read it out loud. It comes from Elder Bar. He says, this is for Phil's lawyer, which is Steve Brenner, guys, if you haven't picked up on that. This is for Phil's lawyer. Yes or no? Miami beat Cincinnati. For everyone, first official 3 games this season were better or worse than the first official 3 of the first season. Last official win was versus New England Revolution. What did the team stop doing compared to that game? So obviously, Phil's lawyer is not in the building, so he can't answer that question. I'm just kidding, Steve. Love to you in Barbados. I hope you're having a great time. But the other questions we can't answer. So are these 3 games, Jose, worse than or better than the first 3 of the 2020 season with Diego Alonso? They're worse. They're worse.
But it's hard to compare because
no, they're worse, brother. They're worse. Look, they played LAFC as an expansion team and were competitive. The second game.
But are we talking MLS is back or are we talking regular season?
It just says first official 3 games, and for me that's LAFC, DC United, and the first game of MLS back, which was against Orlando. And in those games, Inter Miami scored goals. They were competitive. They had a lead in one against Orlando. Yeah, they had a lead against Orlando, if I'm not mistaken. So those 3 games were better for me than these 3.
Yeah, probably. But if that's why it's hard to judge, because you had the MLS's back tournament before that. So I think you had the team had more time, didn't they? Yes.
No, hold on, Jose. I think you're getting your games confused. LAFC and DC United, those 2 games in 2020 came before the pandemic. And they lost. Inter Miami lost both of those games.
Oh, right. Yes. Well, yeah.
They didn't score against LAFC, but they were competitive. And against DC United, they took a lead and were on their way to winning before Roman Torres got the red card, and then the wheels came undone in the final 20-25 minutes or so, and they lost 2-1. And then then there's a big break because of the pandemic. The MLS's back tournament happens. They have the opening game against Orlando City, the in-state rival. Inter Miami took a lead in that game with Juan Agudelo scoring, but then late on, Nani pulled out some magic, and Inter Miami lost that game. So they lost all 3 games. They didn't get any single points, but I think the performances were better than the performances here, where you've gotten a point out of 3, but you also got blown out 5-1 in a game. So I think the first 3 games of 2020 were better than 2022, but that's just my opinion.
Now I remember. Yes, I agree with you.
I'm a history buff, bro. I'm a history buff. Inter Miami future history book writer at some point. I don't know.
That was Rodolfo Pizarro's Inter Miami.
Yes,
so
yes.
It's a shame El Primo is not here to comment on that.
Last question comes from Talk Inter Miami CF. If Miami loses against Cincinnati, do you think that should be enough for Neville to be sacked, or do you guys think he has more time? Bonus question, do you expect Higuain to start on Saturday? Thanks, guys. Two good questions. Two very good questions, because Gonzalo Higuain did not train with the team on Tuesday. A spokesperson said Higuain was in the gym doing gym work. Now, obviously, that might raise a few eyebrows after Phil Neville's comments on the weekend and whether Higuain's in good standing. I haven't heard anything with regards to there potentially being some issue or Higuain being, suspended or removed from the team and pushed off to the side. I haven't heard anything of that nature. I have heard, and obviously have seen it throughout Higuain's time here in South Florida, that because he's at an advanced age in his career, at times he does not train with the team. At times, especially so close to the most recent game, they don't give him that heavy of a workload during the week. Sometimes he sits out training sessions and focuses on just doing gym work, because at this point in his career, his body just, based off their metrics, I'm sure, just can't take that intensity level that many times throughout the week and then still have some energy for the weekend. So I think as of right now, I think he will play on Saturday. As for should Neville be sacked if they lose, I don't think that he's going to be sacked, and I don't think that he will be sacked, and I don't think that he should be sacked, because it's 4 games into the new team that they have built practically from scratch this offseason. So you'd essentially be pushing the reset button yet again if you let go of Phil Neville after 4 games, which I think is too soon going off of this season alone. Jose.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I don't think there's a chance, and I think we have to give this team some time. And 4 games is not enough. And on Gonzalo, I think it's only normal that he might have a different schedule than the rest of the team. They just try to manage him. So I would expect him to start over the weekend.
Okay, then the final thoughts time. It's final thoughts time. That does it for a Q&A session for this week. I will give you my final thought first.
Okay.
And it's that a lot of former Inter Miami players are starting to make news. They're starting to grab the spotlight for contributing some goals or some big plays for their respective new clubs. And it starts with Matias Pellegrini, who scored a few days ago for Estudiantes. Rodolfo Pizarro in his last 2 games has scored a goal and delivered an assist, a game-winning assist for Monterrey. And Lewis Morgan obviously got that hat trick against for the New York Red Bulls in week 2 of the MLS season. Julian Carranza also got a game-winning assist and then a red card also for the Philadelphia Union back in week 2. So some former Inter Miami players are starting to find their footing, or starting to make the type of impact that they did not make with Inter Miami. That's just my final thought. Just wanted to pass that on, because I thought it was notable that in the last 2 weeks they've all kind of at once made the difference or started to make a real impact for their respective sides.
All right, so it's my turn, I guess.
Yeah, unless you have anything you want to add there.
No, I don't want to add anything to that. I just will let time bring Rolo Pizarro back to Miami. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe in your football manager, but that's about it.
No, my football manager is not. He's not in the plans. So right now, I think my team is looking really good. But we'll talk more about that in the next spot. My final thought is on. Well, I'm going to keep it local, because I got notice yesterday, a press release, that we have a new team in South Florida. So people, please don't start calling me a Magia FC fan, because that's the name of the new team. There's a new team in Miami. They will be playing at the NPSL level. So welcome to Magia FC. How do you like that name? I don't like the logo at all. It seems like, it's more like the Juve logo with a hat on. I don't like the logo, but I like the game, so I will say welcome to South Florida, to Magia FC. That's my final thought.
Okay, Jose, ever the local man. That does it for this week's show. Thank you guys so much for listening and for submitting your questions again. Please, if you haven't already, leave us a review. We're closing in on our number, and when we do, we have some cool things planned and in store for you guys, we will be back again early next week because I am off to South America after this final game before the international window or the international break. So we will be recording early next week on Monday, and the pod will drop early next week as well. So be on the lookout for that, probably Tuesday drop or late Monday night. But again, that does it for this week's show. For Jose Armando, for Steve and Primo Brenner, who is in Barbados having a grand old time, I am Franco Panizo. This is Miami Total Football Radio, and we'll talk to you guys again very soon.